All right, this is the tutorial video for anyone who's editing the Chippys video. So if you're editing a different video, you can look through some for the video that corresponds to what you're editing. This is just you're doing the Chippys video. So in class on Tuesday, you got the footage onto your computer in a 5-folder setup. It should be called Chippys, and you should see your 5 folders: audio, exports, graphics, media, projects. Your audio folder has got some audio in it. It's got this voiceover here as well as some other audio tracks. Your exports folder is going to be empty. This graphics folder will be empty. The media folder will have stuff from your different cameras here, and your projects folder will be empty as well. Let's go ahead and make a new Premiere project. You're going to click down here on Premiere. If you don't see Premiere in your dock, you can go up to the magnifying glass and type in Premiere to open that up. And let's go ahead and actually get Premiere opened up. I'm going to click on New Project. And let's make a project here. We're going to call this project. The project name will be Chippys, then your name, then Rough Cut. Now the rough cut, the work we're doing for the rough cut, it's about 80% of the work that we're doing in editing. The other 20% we'll do after the rough cut is just going to be some simple color corrections, some graphics, things like that. Not going to be a ton of work, but the rough cut is most of the work of the editing here. Under project location, this is really important. If you don't do this, it's going to save it on some random folder and you won't be able to find it later. Click this drop down here, choose location, and then find that 5-folder setup. It should be, just for you, it should be on your desktop here. For me, it's going to be somewhere else. I've got it saved on a hard drive here. But I'm going to go to my folder and make sure you save it into your projects folder in that 5-folder setup. Then click choose. Then these options, you can ignore all this stuff in the middle. These options on the right, where it says copy media, new bin, create new sequence, make sure all of those are unchecked. So I don't want those to be blue, I want them to be gray. Okay, then click create. So I've got a blank Premiere project here. I've got my my 4 kind of basic panels that you always have. If you have another panel over here on the right, this like learn panel, I think it looks something like this. If you've got a learn panel right here with tutorials and stuff, we can close that. Just to close it, just click on this little hamburger little icon right here and then choose close panel. Okay, great. So I've got my panels here. I'm gonna start importing some media. So you go down to your blue face, the Finder icon right here, and you go into your Chippys folder. Oops, I'm sorry. Go to your Chippys folder, and you're going to see some new folders that maybe Premiere created for you. You see your project here. You might see these Adobe autosave things. Ignore those for now. I just want this audio folder right here and this media folder. I want to drop them into this panel right here, my project panel. So I'm going to choose, just click and drag the audio panel, or the audio folder. Just click, drag, and click. And same thing for my media folder. Just click, drag, and click. Cool. Now you probably will see by default, you'll see your folders will look like this kind of icon mode. Go down here to this lower left here and make them into list mode instead. Because what it allows me to do is it allows me to click and drag to kind of get a quick preview of the files themselves. We'll use a combination of list mode and icon mode as we're editing, but this main kind of project panel or project tab here should just be in list mode. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a sequence. We're just going to make a sequence from scratch. So I'm going to go up to File, then New, File, then New, then Sequence. It's got a bunch of different presets here. I don't want to use a preset though. I'm just going to go to Settings. Under Editing Mode, I'm just going to go scroll all the way to the top and do Custom. The time base is going to be 2997 frames per second. My frame size will be 1920 by 1080. Yep. And my sequence name, I'm going to give this sequence a name. I'm going to call it Chippys, my name, Rough Cut. All right, and then click OK. And look, I've got a sequence. I've got a sequence right here. It's empty. There's nothing in it right now. I can see it over here as well in my project panel. It's a little sequence here called Chippys. I'm going to go ahead and make a folder for all my sequences, though. So down here at the bottom right, I've got a little folder icon. Or you can just right-click in the gray area here to do New Bin. And let's make a bin for sequences. Okay. And I'm just going to click and drag that into that sequences folder. Okay, great. Now, like I said, this is an empty sequence. There's nothing in it right now. The first thing I want to drop into my sequence is that voiceover that we had another student recorded for you. That student's name is Blake. It's not the Blake who's in your group, different student, but he recorded this voiceover for you. So I'm going to click this little arrow next to my audio folder and find this file right here. It's called Chippys VO. That's your voiceover here. And I'm just going to drag into this audio track right here. It's underneath this kind of big line here. These are my audio tracks. These are my video tracks. I'm going to drop it into this first audio track right here. Now it looks really small. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a bit. I'm going to find this scroll bar down here in the bottom, move my mouse over the wheels here and just click and drag that in. But it's also really squished and I can't really see those waveforms very well. If I move my mouse so it's in between two tracks like this, and then click and hold and drag down, then I'll be able to see those waveforms more clearly. That's really important. So I can actually see, kind of get a visual of what Blake is saying just by looking at the waveforms. And if I want to listen to it, I can just move my playhead over to the beginning of where he speaks and then hit play or hit the space bar on my keyboard.
4,199 miles.
And Blake recorded this really at a really high gain level. It's really loud. You can see when you look at these bars over here on the right, you can see that it's really loud. I want to turn this down. So when I've made this track bigger, I can see this kind of straight line, this horizontal line running across the whole thing. This is my volume bar, and I can move this down. If I move my mouse right over that volume bar, my mouse turns into this kind of funny looking mouse with some arrows, and then click and drag, I can move this down. I'm going to move it down about minus 15 decibels or so.
Iowa from London, England. And because of that long trek across the pond...
And that's made it a little bit more of a manageable volume from Blake there. Make sure you're wearing headphones as you're editing, by the way. If you're just doing this through speakers, everyone's going to hear what you're doing. Might be kind of bothersome, and also you won't be able to really do much sound mixing. Okay, now what you maybe notice, when you look at these waveforms, you can kind of notice there are a bunch of pauses here, right? So Blake speaks for a while, and then you notice there's kind of this empty space here where he's not speaking. Then he talks some more, and then there's an empty space here where he's not speaking. Then there's more talking, and there's empty space. What I envisioned for the edit for this project is that every time Blake is speaking, every time the voiceover person is speaking, we're looking at B-roll. We're looking at B-roll from inside of Chippys. We're seeing just different clips that you filmed of Chippys. And then when he's not speaking, what we'll do is we'll cut that like something like this. We'll move the rest of what he's saying over. And then in this empty space that we'll create, we'll have either interview footage from your interview with the owner, or we'll have the footage of Hugh talking when he kind of gave us the tour of the place, something like that. And we'll kind of make those cuts throughout. So we'll have kind of cuts and then stuff in the middle here in this empty space that we'll fill, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not going to get too far ahead of you there. You don't have to follow me through that right now. Let's go ahead and make just our first couple of cuts here, and let's throw in some B-roll just so I can show you what that process is. So I'm going to zoom in here a bit more. I want to just kind of get this first kind of phrase, this first kind of chunk of what Blake says. First, I'm going to move my playhead over to just so it's at the beginning of where Blake actually talks, because there's kind of some empty space right here. And I'm going to use my cut tool to cut out that empty space. So I've made a cut there. Go back to my selection tool, select this empty space and delete it. And I'm going to move this over to the left. And let's just hear the first thing that Blake says. Let's get an idea of how he starts this video.
4,199 miles separate Des Moines, Iowa from London, England. And because of that long trek across the pond, many Iowans may never have the chance to truly experience the food and beverages Britain has to offer. That is where Chippys, located in Ankeny, can help you out.
Okay, so that sounds like that's kind of our opening here of what he's going to say. That's where Chippys can help you out, right? And that's our opening here. So what I'm going to do is as soon as he's done saying that, I'm going to make another cut here. I'm going to make a cut there. And then I use my selection tool, and I'm just going to take the rest of what Blake has to say and just move it over. I don't know. It doesn't matter how far you move it over. We're gonna come back to this later. So I've created some empty space here. Before I fill in this empty space, though, I need to add some B-roll here. I need to add some B-roll so that I'm not just listening to Blake speak, but I'm seeing some stuff too. All right, so let's decide what kind of B-roll we want to have over this speaking right here. First, I'm going to just zoom in a little bit here, so I'm just seeing this section here. Again, this is just kind of the intro where Blake starts talking about Chippys, the place. I'm also going to take this first track here, this video track that's empty right now. I'm going to move my mouse kind of in between the two tracks, make that a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to close this audio folder here. Just click that little arrow to close the audio folder. I've got my media folder here, and it's got two folders inside of it, Camera A and Camera B. And inside of these folders, I've got all my different clips from those two different cameras. I actually want to be able to kind of see like thumbnail previews of all of these. So I'm just going to double click on the folder icon next to camera A. And that's going to open up that bin in its own little tab. So, I've got multiple tabs here. I've got a camera A tab right here. And I can see all those clips. I'm going to go back to my projects tab, go to my camera B folder here, double click on the folder icon, and that opens up my camera B tab right here. Now, right now I'm seeing these in list mode, but if I want to see them actually in icon mode, that might be useful just for these two bins, for the camera A and camera B bin. So for camera A, at the bottom left here, I'm going to choose this icon view. And now I can see all of these clips. I actually see little previews of all of them. And actually, even if I hover my mouse over them, I can actually see what they look like as they go through. I can kind of see what happens in those. I'm going to do the same thing for camera B. I'm going to switch that one into icon view so I can get kind of a preview of each of these clips. Now, this next part of the process is kind of up to you. You're choosing which clips do I want to have I'm watching while Blake is speaking. In general, in a situation like this with this B-roll, let's see. This section here where Blake speaks is about it's about 17 seconds long where he's talking, right? And I don't just want to see one clip that whole time. That would just be too long. And people have short attention spans. We want to be seeing maybe one clip every 3 or 4 seconds or so, unless there's a reason for it to be longer. So if you want to see the clip a little bit larger, it's a really small preview right here. If I want to see this clip a little bit larger, I can just double click on it. It's going to open it up in here. This is called the source panel. This allows me to see it and also hear what it sounds like. Now I like this clip. It's pretty long. You can see it's about 35 seconds long right here. I don't need the whole thing. So I'm going to pick like which section of this clip do I want to drag down here into my timeline. So I'm going to move my playhead over to, I guess, like, I don't know, where's the beginning of where I want to see. I think I like right here where the camera person started doing some movement right here. So I don't want to see anything from here on. I just want to see from here on. So to tell Premiere that that's what I want, I'm just going to make an in marker right here to mark that in. That's what this is right here. It's an in marker. And then play through a few seconds of this, maybe up to here or something like that until we get up close to this person's face. And then I'll find this bracket here to make an out marker. You can also do in and out markers just using the I and O keys on your keyboard. Basically what I told Premiere is I just want this much of this whole clip is like 35 seconds long, but I only want maybe this section right here. Now when I click and drag this down into my timeline, it's only going to add that section. But there's a problem. One thing you might have noticed is that I haven't clicked and dragged yet. I haven't let go of the mouse yet. The top bar here, the top blue bar is the video. The bottom little blue chunk there is going to be the audio. And if I drop it right here, it's going to cover up and actually delete that voiceover track that's right there. I don't want that. So before I click and drag, I'm going to find these little blue little lights here on the left. I'm going to click in this little empty space next to A2. And what this is going to do is now when I click and drag, it's going to drag that audio into that second track there instead of dragging it on top of that voiceover track. And there we go. Now if I move my playhead over to the beginning and hit play, now what you probably notice if you're listening to this is I can see the footage and I can hear it. I can hear what recorded with the microphone that was on that camera, but it's so loud. It's like super loud. It's overpowering my voiceover right here. I need to turn this audio, this little blue audio, down. But because it's so squished, I can't see this little audio bar to be able to turn it down. So I need to move my mouse in between the two tracks, click and drag that down a bit, just so I can see that audio bar, and then I can click and drag to pull that down. I'm going to move it down quite a bit. I don't want to move it down all the way. I'd kind of like to hear it a little bit, but I don't need to hear so much of it. Now if I move my playhead back,
4,199 miles separate Des Moines, Iowa from London, England.
Okay, I like that.
And because of that long...
I don't need to see...
separate Des Moines, Iowa from London, England.
Maybe like right there after he says London, England, maybe that's all of this clip that I need. So I'm going to squish it in even just a little bit more. Don't need quite all of that. Great, so I found something to fill in like the first 5 seconds of this. I'm going to find more to fill in the rest of the space here. So I don't know, maybe I'll go to my camera A bin here and find like a nice pan or a tilt or something like that. I like this, that I've got some people shopping in this one here. So yeah, I'm going to pick like a chunk of this here. I'm just using the I and O keys on my keyboard to just kind of in and out this part here. I'm going to drop this in here, just right next to my other clip I had, and I'm going to use this little volume bar to turn this down so I don't hear quite so
And
loud.
because of that long trek across the pond, many Iowans may never have the chance to.
And I'm going to just pick a few more here. Let's, I don't know, pick another clip that I like. This is up to you. You can choose, you know, the clips that you want to throw in here. This is totally your call on all of this. I like the movement here. This is nice. I'm just kind of picking. Just kind of, you know, picking this. Obviously, you can do this yourself however you want to. And I'm turning down the volume on these a little bit.
Truly experience the food and beverages Britain has to offer. That is where.
Now, where Blake says here, he says that's where Chippys comes in.
That is where Chippys, located in Ankeny, can help you out.
Since he says Chippys there, I think it might be cool to have something where I see the word Chippys, right? So I'm going to find, I think there's some footage here that Jason shot where I can see the word Chippys. Or at least I can see like British gifts or something like that. That's totally fine. I'm just going to take this little clip here and drop this in. And then it doesn't need to be, it's a little bit longer than what Blake says here, so I'm just going to pull that down a little bit and turn down the volume on that. And so yeah, okay, I've got 4 short little B-roll clips here so that my viewers who are watching this video can see the store while Blake is doing his little voiceover. And that's exactly what that concept should look like.
Beverages Britain has to offer. That is where Chippys, located in Ankeny, can help you out.
Okay, so after Blake talks, like I said, we had this kind of pause and we cut it. We moved some of his voiceover over here. What am I going to fill in this empty space? I might not use all this empty space, but I want to have something happen here next. What I think would make sense would be for us to have that footage of Hugh, right? You had Hugh kind of playing the presenter here, and I think we should go ahead and have that in this empty space here. We don't have to use all of it, but we have this footage here where Hugh says, you know, welcome to Chippys or something like that. I think it's this clip right here that's in this camera B bin here. It would make a lot of sense to have this be there. But to do this, because we used also had a sound recorder here, we need to make another sequence here. Let me show you how we can do this. So I'm going to actually go ahead and close this camera B bin and just close panel. Same thing with this camera A bin. I can just close this for now. And then I'm going to go to my project panel here, and I can see my audio, sequences, and media folders here. Okay, under media, I'm going to find my media folder here, and then I'm going to find that clip where it was Hugh speaking. I think it was, just find, is this one right here, this 8925 here. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. So I found this clip here. I'm just double clicking on the little icon so I can see this is Hugh speaking here. I'm going to make a new sequence out of just this little clip right here. And then later on, I'll be able to move that sequence into my main sequence here. So I'm going to find this sequence where I know it's Hugh talking. I will right click, and then I'm going to choose new sequence from clip. And it's made another sequence. If I look at my timeline, I've actually got a couple different tabs here, right? I've got my rough cut tab here. This is that sequence. And this tab here just has the Hugh talking one. That's fine, totally fine. It might be nice to kind of rename this. You can see I've got a new sequence here. It's got this green label, but it has the same name as that original video clip that you shot. I'm going to just rename this just by clicking on the word there, the MVI. And I'm just going to call it host or something like that, or host intro. I don't know. You can call it Hugh if you want to. That's a sequence, and I'm going to take this sequence with the little green label, and I'm going to move it up into my sequences folder. Okay, and then I can kind of close my media folder here. Okay, next thing is I've got, that's great. That's my host intro there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my audio, and I'm going to find the audio that corresponds to this footage here that we filmed of Hugh talking. Now, it looks like you recorded a few different takes of this. And it looks like the first couple takes weren't the right take, but it looks like this third take is the one that matches. I just listened to it ahead of time. So I'm going to take this third one here. It says Zoom 03. I'm going to drag it and drop it into the track underneath Hugh speaking. Okay. And right now they're not synchronized, right? They're not synchronized. They're totally different times. I need to synchronize this video with this audio. So I'm just going to click and drag to highlight both of them. I'll do right click. and I'm going to choose synchronize. I'm going to synchronize by audio and then click OK. It should be pretty quick, should be pretty easy. And as I listen,
Hi, my name's Hugh McCauley. We're here at Chippys Des Moines.
and I can see that it's synchronized now. Now I can still hear this kind of crappy blue audio. This is the audio that was, recorded by the camera itself with its built-in mic. It's not very good. I don't need this audio anymore though. So I'm going to zoom out here. And I'm actually going to take my green audio clip. I'm going to stretch this down so it's the same length as my other audio here, and make sure it's the same length on the other side too. Then I'm going to actually just delete this bad audio from the built-in mic. But if I delete it, I'm actually going to delete the video too, so I need to do something else first. So I'm going to click on anywhere that it's blue in here. Then I'm going to, on my keyboard, I'm going to find Command and then L. And that will unlink the video here from this audio. That will allow me to click on this little audio bar, this blue audio bar, hit delete, and delete that audio. Then I'm going to highlight the blue and the green, right click. Actually, I don't have to right click, sorry. I'll just Command L. And now I've linked these as well. So now these are linked. If I move the blue, it moves the green with it, and those are together. That's great. Next is I'm going to just find the chunk of this host intro that I actually want to include in my main sequence here. I don't need the whole thing. I don't really want to see the whole walkthrough. I just want to see him kind of walk us into the store. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Maybe I'll make this track a bit bigger so I can see it more easily. And I want to get to the part where Hugh says...
Hi, my name's Hugh McCauley. We're here at Chippys.
It's a little bit weird here at the beginning while the gimbal kind of adjusted itself. So I think right here where he says we're here is where I'm going to make a cut. And then I will go ahead and I don't have to delete anything, I'll just leave that.
We're here at Chippys Des Moines in Ankeny. It's a British convenience store that sells all your favourite British sweets, British chocolate, British crisp, British biscuits, everything. Even a British breakfast is in here, so why don't we come in and have a look?
I'm just going to go until he opens the door here. I love that, I think that's great. And just right about until he like starts to kind of look around here. I don't know. I don't need to do the whole tour. You can if you want to. I don't really need the whole tour here. I'm just going to make a cut right about here. And then I'm going to zoom out a bit so I can see everything. So just this chunk here. I mean, you can make your own decision here, but I like just this chunk right here. This is what I want to copy into my main sequence here. So make sure in your main sequence you've got plenty of room between your first bit of voiceover and your second bit of voiceover. Then go to your host intro sequence that we just made, and I could just click on this little section that I made here. I'm going to do Command C, or you can right click and choose copy if you want. And then go into your rough cut. Move your playhead so it's somewhere in this empty space here, and then just Command V to paste that in there. Now it's in there. And I'm going to move this over here to kill that empty space there. So if I move my playhead over to the end of what Blake says in that first little section and then hit play.
Located in Ankeny can help you out.
We're here at Chippys Des Moines in Ankeny. It's a British convenience store that sells all your favourite British sweets, British chocolate, British crisp, British biscuits, everything. Even a British breakfast is in here, so why don't we come in and have a look?
Okay, now you probably noticed the footage is too bright right here. We can probably salvage it somewhat in post, but we're not worrying about that right now for the rough cut. We'll worry about that later when we get to our final cut. Not a huge deal right now for the rough cut, so it's okay if it's not perfect there. But yeah, so what I've done is I've filled in some of this empty space with just Hugh starting his tour. After he's done a bit of his tour, I want to bring this voiceover back, just close out that empty space, and let's see what the voiceover has to say next.
Glenn Greet, the owner of Chippys.
Okay, so it sounds like he's introducing our interview subject. First of all, I'm going to delete some of this empty space here. So there's kind of empty space where Blake doesn't speak here. I'll go ahead and cut that out and then move that over a bit. All right.
Glenn Greet, the owner of Chippys, talked about how the Ankeny location came to be.
So it seems like right over here where he says Glenn Greet, the owner of the location, talked about how it came to be. It seems like what makes sense here is just to have a little bit more B-roll, maybe a couple more clips of B-roll or something like that. You can go ahead and pick that how you want to. Again, I just had kind of the bins opened up here and I'm just going to really arbitrarily pick like one or two clips here that might make sense. Maybe I'll just pick one just for the sake of this tutorial here. but of course you can pick a couple here that will just play until we get to the interview.
Glenn Greet, the owner of Chippys, talked about how the Ankeny location came to be.
So now, after Blake says Glenn Greet talked about how the location came to be, would make quite a bit of sense, right? To have footage of Glenn Greet talking about how the location came to be, right? So that's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to use my cut tool. I'm going to cut right here at the end of where Blake was speaking here. So making another cut in that voiceover. Use my selection tool. Just move this over somewhat. I could zoom out here. I'm just moving this voiceover over a bit. And let's find that footage of Glenn speaking, right? So we've got some footage of your interview here. Here's the footage here. It's in this camera A bin of Glenn speaking. But I think you did it with 2 cameras. So I'm going to go into my camera B bin, take a look at that. And let's find that camera B bin, because you also had him talking and you had Hugh on camera.
That is not cabin, but I enjoy.
So what we have is we have a multi-camera sequence here. You have a multi-camera interview, right? You have a camera A, you have a camera B here. So we need to make a multi-camera sequence in order for this to work. All right, so go to your projects tab here on the left, this tab here that you kind of started with, and let's find our in our media folders. Let's find those clips that were for the interview itself. So it looks like, actually, I can just do this from here. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we found the clips where the interview is happening, right? This is the one for the camera A, and this is the one for camera B, where I also see Hugh, and I can hear his responses and things like that. Let's take this camera A one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a camera A sequence out of this. So I'm going to right-click on it, and I can just choose New Sequence from Clip. It's made a sequence here, right? It's made a sequence. It's just it's called a bunch of numbers. It's the same name as the clip itself. And I can close that for now, but I can see I've got 2 things. They look identical. One is the clip, one is the sequence. I'm going to rename this one here, the one that's the sequence, just by clicking on the numbers there, which is its name. I'm going to call this camera A. And that's a sequence. Okay, cool. I'm going to go to my B bin here, right? My camera B bin. This one right here, I'm going to make a sequence out of this clip. I'm going to right-click on it. And then New Sequence from Clip. And when it opens here in the timeline, I can close it. It doesn't need to be open right now. But here, where it has this name, this MVI name, I can just click on those letters and numbers there and just call this one Camera B. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to this tab right here, this Projects tab, where I have my audio folder, my sequences folder, and my media folder. I'm going to open up this media folder. I'm going to find this camera. I'm going to open up this camera A folder. I'm just clicking on the arrow. I'm going to find this camera A sequence that I just made. It should have that green label here. I'm just going to move this up into that sequences folder. Same thing with camera B. I'm going to just click on the arrow to open up camera B, find this little file that has the green label on it, move this up into that sequences folder. And so now my sequences folder has some new stuff in it, right? It's got a camera A sequence, it's got a camera B sequence, I've got my main sequence, my rough cut sequence is what it's called. I've got my host intro sequence, that's the one that I use to get Hugh synchronized with the good quality audio. I can close that for now. What I want to do next is I need to get the audio from this interview, with this guy into this sequences folder. I'm going to pop open my audio folder here, and let's find that good quality audio from that interview.
Founding story, because obviously there really is no British store like this in the whole state.
You've got a couple different audio sources here. That sounds like that might be the boom mic. This one sounds like it might be...
Culture. That's what blew me away. Heard of,
Yeah.
but it's real chocolate. What does everyone like? And then they buy it. Mostly in law enforcement. But I'm here. I haven't.
So I'm listening to this and I'm seeing there's not really a whole lot of Hugh speaking. Maybe there's a little bit right here.
Okay, so last question, right? So, do you understand the influence the store has?
What I'm going to do is, because there's not really a ton that Hugh says here, but I do like having it. Here's what I think I'm going to do here. So I'm going to take my... See, it sounds like this one here is the audio of the guy speaking, right, from the boom mic. This Zoom 04 one. I'm going to actually just move this into that sequences folder, just like that. And I can collapse that audio folder. So now in my sequences folder, I've got camera A, camera B, I've got this audio one right here. I'm going to make a multi-camera sequence out of these three right here, camera A, camera B, and this audio. I'm going to kind of skip over these two because they're already their own sequences. Okay. It's really important the order that I click these in. So first click on this zoom, this audio thing. Click on that first. Then hold the command key on your keyboard. It's right next to the space bar. And then choose camera B, camera A. It's important that you click on the audio one first because that will determine which audio is the main audio for this multi-camera sequence we're about to make. Okay, then right click, and I'm going to create a multi-camera source sequence. Right here in this dropdown, just choose custom, and then right here you can say interview if you want to, or something like that. Not a big deal. For synchronized point, we're going to use audio. If this checkbox is here, it says move source clips, just uncheck that box there. The audio channels should be mono, and we can go ahead and click OK. What it's going to do is it's going to take this process, it's going to synchronize the audio from the two cameras, which didn't record very great quality audio, with that really good quality audio that your sound tech recorded. It's going to make a sequence that is called interview right here. Now I can't edit this sequence yet, so I need to right click on this one that says interview, and I'm going to do new sequence from clip. And now this is my multi-camera sequence. So it's got, I can see Hugh, I can see the person he's interviewing.
The direct result is there was just enough people.
But the audio is the good quality audio. Now I can only see one camera angle right now, but if I want to see multiple camera angles, let me show you how you can see both of your camera angles and also make cuts so you can see more of them. So from your multi-camera interview, if you're using the same computer you used before, you should have this little button right here. It says toggle multi-camera view. It kind of looks like a couple boxes here. But if you don't see that, you can click on this little plus sign right here, and you see a bunch of different icons. You want to find this one that kind of looks like a hopscotch grid, and just click and drag it into this panel right here, this kind of blue panel. When I click on this, I can see both of my camera angles. And that's great. I can see, and I can be able to switch back and forth between them. Later on, it'll be very easy for me to color correct each panel, but we don't have to worry about that for the rough cut here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look through this interview, and I'm going to pick what's a good quote that I want to start with. I don't want to put the whole interview right here in this empty space. No, because no one's going to watch that. I just want to pick like what's a good high impact thing that he says that's relevant to what they just said in the voiceover, right? So the voiceover just said something like this.
The owner of Chippys talked about how the Ankeny location came to be.
So maybe somewhere in the interview, he talks about how the Ankeny location came to be. I just want to find a key quote from this and just cut out that little bit of a quote there. Kind of like what we just did, when we cut out just a section of Hugh talking when he introduced us to the place. I'm going to find a key quote here.
In the Midwest.
Blown away. Yeah, so we opened Omaha. I knew there was about maybe 400 or 500 British people.
So maybe he says something.
Blown away. Yeah, so we opened Omaha.
Maybe where he says, I knew there was like 400 or 500 British people, right? I don't know. I'm just picking one arbitrarily. You will find a better quote, something that works really well here. I'm going to use my cut tool. I'm just going to cut out just a little snippet of this interview. That's a good high impact quote.
I knew there was about maybe 400 or 500 British people. So when we opened Omaha, that was about 10% of what came in the store that day.
That's great. So maybe that's a good quote. I can find that. I'm just going to cut that. I'll use my selection tool again here. So I've just found this little snippet here of this interview that I want to move from this interview sequence that I made into my main sequence here. I can just click on it. I can right click and choose copy. Then go back to my main sequence. I'm going to move my playhead somewhere in this empty space here. I could do Command V to paste that in there. And then I'm going to zoom in here, and I'll just have this show up right after that little bit of voiceover there. So the voiceover is going to say something like,
He's talked about how the Ankeny location came to be.
I knew there was about maybe 400 or 500 British people. So when we opened Omaha, that was about 10% of what came in the store that day.
Okay, so we have, since we have multiple cameras, we might as well use them. So let's open with, let's have it start with, instead of this camera angle that we see, this is the one that your people watching the video will see. Let's have it so they're seeing this one instead. So
I knew there was about maybe 400 or 500 British people.
And then maybe here, if I want to, maybe I want to switch cameras. I think, again, people have short attention spans. Maybe they'll want to see a different camera angle. I can use my cut tool to make another cut. and here. And then if I click my highlight tool and highlight this second part and then click here, I can choose that different camera angle.
So when we opened Omaha, that was about 10% of what came in the store.
When he says, when we open Omaha,
That was
maybe right here, I might want to make a cut and then go back to this camera angle.
There was about maybe 400 or 500 British people. So when we opened Omaha, that was about 10% of what came in the store that day.
Something like that is fine. I'm again going to let you decide how you want to do this. This is just what I'm deciding as I'm kind of editing this down. So what I've done is I've done a portion of the editing process here. I've shown you kind of how you need to get done what you need to do, but I haven't done everything yet. So you can see all of these kind of peaks here where you see these waveforms. These are places where you'll see every time Blake, your voiceover person, is speaking, we'll see B-roll. We'll see B-roll of the store, whatever B-roll you want to choose. And wherever he's not speaking, you'll make a cut. Maybe you'll cut out this empty space, you know, or something like that. And then in this empty space, you'd have maybe footage from that interview, maybe footage from Hugh's tour, something like that, to fill in that empty space. And that's the editing process. It's not complete until you've completed that editing process. Last thing, in that voiceover that Blake created, there is this little bit at the end here where he says the location of Chippys. I don't think it's really that important that you have that. So if you want to cut out this very last part here, I can just cut it right here as he's done speaking. This part here, that's not super important to have. I don't think we need to say like the location where it is or anything like that right now. We can have that in the video details. He just gives like the exact address. I don't think it's that necessary. But yeah, here's our basic groundwork here. You can work on it from here. I'm going to show you how to submit it though when you're done. So I'm not done. What I'm showing you right here on the screen is not a finished product yet, but I am going to show you how to submit when you're done. So when you're done, make sure you have your rough cut sequence open, and then go to this little export tab right here, where you'll be able to export this video. The file name will just be Chippys, your name, rough cut, so the same name as your sequence. For location, you need to choose, you need to click on this blue text here. You're going to tell it where to save it. By default, you're probably going to see this kind of small window here where you don't have a lot of options. Click on this little arrow right here so you can see more options, and then go to your Chippys folder, find that exports folder. That's where we're going to save this, and then click on save. Okay. For preset, the match source is fine. For format, we want it to be H.264, and then you can just choose export here. Should take a few minutes for it to export. It might take a little while though, so make sure that your computer doesn't fall asleep. You might need to, work on something else on that computer while it's doing it. It could take a few minutes. Okay, you might get a notice, something saying like your video was exported successfully. That's great. You can close that. Just make sure to go to File and Save this project before you close, and then you can go click on Premiere Pro and you can quit Premiere Pro. That's fine. Here, I'm going to see a few new folders here. I see my audio exports, graphics, media projects. I also see these kind of Adobe Premiere folders here. These are just folders that Premiere automatically made. They're backup folders. I'm going to move them into that projects folder just because I like to have things organized. I'm going to move all 5 of them into that projects folder. And for some reason, it didn't save the project into the projects folder. I'm just going to move it into that projects folder. Okay, so now in my exports folder, I have an export. Here it is right here. This is my little rough cut.
4,199 miles separate Des Moines.
This is what you'll submit. If you don't export, the file that you need to submit needs to have an MP4 at the end of it. If it doesn't, it's not the right file. This is what you'll submit, and let me show you how to submit it. You won't submit it directly to Blackboard. So you'll go to our Blackboard page. So to our Blackboard page, and then here in go to the Shared Files folder. Click on that. Find Fall 22. Find the Travel Show folder, and then find the Chippys folder. And then in this Exports folder, click on this Exports folder. This is where you will drop your export. So I'm going to find my export right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and drop this export into this folder. It's going to take a few minutes for it to save it there. So don't just move away from this window. Actually, if you click on this where it says there's uploading, you're able to see like how long it's going to take. You'll see a progress bar showing you how long it's taking it to upload. So wait for that to upload fully before you close this tab or move away from that window. You'll know it's done because the progress bar will be done and it'll say, there, that's done. And I'll know it's yours because it will have your name on it. So then once you've done that, then you can go to our Blackboard page, and all you have to do to submit this is just click on where it says Travel Show Rough Cut, and you just have to submit a note letting me know you've completed the assignment. Again, the rough cut is about 80% of the work of editing this. The final cut, there's just a few minor changes, but all the structure stuff is done for this rough cut. If that's not done, it's not a rough cut. Hopefully that's all the steps. Hopefully that's everything you need for this. I think it's a great video. You have a lot of footage to work with. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Good luck.